it's a fine line between talking to people who are really savvy about all the terminology of the industry and talking to somebody who maybe it's their first time watching it. And so it's so easy to get caught up in, and he threw one wrap and a hooey on there.
Well, what is a wrap and what's a hooey?
Yeah, what's a wrap and a hooey? I have no idea.
Hey, hit that subscribe button now. You're going to like it. Welcome to the Luke Branquinho Show. Yes, Bobby, we named this show after me. Bobby Mote, four-time world champion bareback rider. In my opinion, probably one of the greatest to ever do it, just because of his tall stature. But also president of the WCRA. Bobby, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Luke, for having me.
Hot topic. We're going to get right into it. Obviously, the WCRA has been so important to these cowboys and cowgirls and how much money they're able to win and opportunity that you guys have given them. But the one opportunity you guys have also done is an instant replay. And when I say hot topic, it's because we've seen a lot of things transpire in the rodeo industry with calls at Houston, calls at Austin. How important and the meaning of instant replay to the rodeo athlete?
It was a no-brainer for us. I mean, fortunately, through our existing infrastructure with the media do at these rodeos, you've got nearly enough camera angles already, and so we've added a couple, like a GoPro at the barrier line, and mainly the ability to have a full-time replay official. We've basically all of a sudden, we didn't invent instant replay. The PBR was the first one in our industry to use it. But then we took, what we learned from them and through some trial and error, because, I mean, what they did worked fine for bull riding, but, it's really in one location in a small arena, limited number of review calls. And so then we had to kind of go through and write the book on what was and what wasn't reviewable. And it's I would say that there's still room for improvement on it. But the whole goal is that the money goes to the right place. I mean, we're for the athlete. They're our number one customer. It's as crazy as this sounds in this conversation, it's not the fans, it's not the sponsors, but it's the athletes. And so, that's where our heart's at, is making sure that it's good as it can be for the athlete. So instant replay was a no-brainer from that standpoint. We started out doing it with our four officials, and if there was a challenge, then the lead official would walk over, and we had a monitor station by the fence at the timed event in and at the riding event in, and he would go, and that worked okay. And then when we started our arrangement with Corpus Christi, that got us thinking, so what if we just had a designated replay official that reviewed every time that there was a penalty or anything that might be reviewed. And so if a guy's riding and he misses his horse out and the ride's going on, that replay official, he's already reviewed because he knows that there's a chance that it's going to be challenged. Odds are, by the time that guy gets off on the pickup man, goes back, throws the challenge flag, it's already been reviewed a couple different ways, a couple different angles, and in fact, the officials themselves can review something. So if they saw something they weren't quite sure, they could review it. And when I talk to those officials, I've asked them, what's your opinion on it? For us, it's a safety. It allows them, no different than the athletes. Like when the gate opens, you're reacting. You're not thinking through, is that steer about to leave, or how fast? You just react. When they see potential call, a rule infraction, they should be able to react. These guys are pros. They do it. They've seen thousands and thousands of runs or rides. And so you want them to be able to have the freedom to react with the safety net of a different view, a slow motion view, different angles, whatever, to make sure the room's right.
Well, to me also, it adds value to our sport. We consider ourselves a professional sport, yet I don't know a lot of professional sports where we have to pay to play, which I'm not knocking anything that. We rodeo our whole careers, paid entry fees. But to take yourself to that next level, it adds that value to it. And not only from the Cowboys, standpoint, but from the fan standpoint as well. Nothing to me, getting to watch an instant replay called, which we've all got to see on the big screen in the arena or in the stands. It was impressive to say, okay, now they're letting the money go to the right person, and that's what a sport is about.
Right. So at the beginning of each discipline at our events, WCRA events, we have a short 101 video that basically gives you the 30,000 foot view of what they can expect. Here's the tie down calf roping, and here's how it works, and they talk about the barrier, and they talk about the catch and the flank. And so if you're a fan, you're sitting in the stands and you watch that, you're like, okay, you probably were talking to the person. Somebody goes and they say there was a penalty, a barrier penalty, this guy, and you're like, wait a second, what is that? Well, then they do a review, and the review in the slow motion is shown on the big screen in-house. Well, now you have a real life example of why the barrier matters. Okay, so it's actually you're giving the animal a head start, and if you beat the head start out, then there's a penalty. Apparently there was some malfunction here. There was, maybe there wasn't, and it's being reviewed. The announcer has a moment to talk about it. It matters to them then, and then now they learn what the barrier is. And they say, and so they're more educated. But I think that in rodeo it's so easy. This from doing the television commentary, is it's a fine line between talking to people who are really savvy about all the terminology of the industry and talking to somebody who maybe it's their first time watching it. And so it's so easy to get caught up in, and he threw one wrap and a hooey on there. Well,
what is a wrap and what's a hooey?
Yeah, what's a wrap and a hooey? I have no idea. And so it's important from the fan standpoint to try to balance the information. And so the instant replay gives you a chance to slow down, stop what's going on. It catches everybody's attention. Here's what happened. Here's the review. Here's the call. Back to my original statement is we want to make it good for the athlete.
Well, and that's what it should be. And I know we started instant replay in the ERAs back in 2016, and you guys have carried that forward through the WCRA. And as much as I competed at WCRA, I appreciate what Gary McKinney has done, what you guys have done to help make this better. But why? It's beyond me. We've had calls that could have helped us win another world championship. They went the opposite way. Why the PRCA has not adopted this and taken it to the next level?
I can't speak for that. I just know that the structure of an association is that decisions can't just be quickly, and there's rules and procedures in place for a reason, and I understand it. And I'm not knocking them. I understand that they have a lot of things to consider when they make a decision. It affects, it's easy for us because we don't have 600 rodeos, right?
Right.
But what I can hope, and what I think our track record has proven, is that we can sort of pioneer some of that change. We can work out some of the bugs, and we're happy to share our learnings with anybody who wants to. Because the WCRA it's not like the new association. That's what everybody was worried about. Like when we first came on the scene nearly 5 years ago, that we were going to try to take over rodeo. That's not the case at all. It's about additional opportunities. The WCRA has been a springboard for lots of people to go and realize their dreams beyond what we can offer them. Like, I think if everybody in the industry does their part, then the industry as a whole grows. But we can't be so closed-minded. We're concerned about just the things that benefit our organization, because it's not a big enough industry to do that. We're concerned with what's good for rodeo as a whole. I believe instant replay, it's a brainer. It's good for the whole. It's just one of the things that I feel like we've proven. It's one thing when I was rodeoing to say, well, I think that we should do this or you should do that. But if there's no action and no solutions behind those ideas, it's empty, it's hollow. And that's really, I think, how I got in the position that I'm in, because I saw a lot of guys who were really successful in rodeo, like the most successful, and injury or whatever decided they aged out, whatever, and they weren't good enough anymore. the next day they're trying to figure out what they're going to go do to make a living. And I don't mean it should be like the NFL to where they're just independent and wealthy, but at the same time, could it be? I mean, and I think that it's better now. It's way better now than it was when I was in my prime.
Oh yeah.
You see guys like, Stetson Wright or Casey Field winning, and I'm super happy that they are. I think that for it to be sustainable, there needs to be more avenues for more people to make a living in this. And part of that is when they do their job, they should get paid for it.
Well, and you touched on it, and I know for me at the national finals, but you touched on it with Corpus. They were suspect on the production. That is one thing at the national finals. They do not want to give up. They don't want to say, okay, if we do instant replay, it's going to add 10 minutes to our rodeo. Well, we want that 10 minutes for those people to get out the door, back to the casinos, back gambling. Instead of saying, let's take those 10 minutes and let the right person win, pay the right person. And again, it happened to me in 2009, I believe, with Flagger said I didn't have a hand on the steer. What my time would have been played a big role into whether I was going to win the world championship. But I knew that if I placed where I was at in average, pretty good chance I was going to win it. Again, these are things that now with instant replay hopefully can be rectified for people coming through.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it wouldn't take 10 minutes. And like the first year that we did it at Corpus, there were 0 instant replay channels. And so it's not as if it happens half a dozen times during performance, and we don't fine people. We have a rule that if somebody was just being a ding dong and throwing it all the time for no reason, we could assess a penalty to them. But it's not like if the ruling on the field basically stood and the challenge was denied, why penalize the guy? He already got penalized, he didn't win anything.
Right.
And so something like that is in place. And this is where it gets challenging for the PRCA, because they're not able to make decisions based on just the NFR group of, that's a more of a controlled environment than Slack at Oakdale. You know what I mean? Completely different. And so they have to try to write rules that apply to both, and they can't just make a decision. We have the luxury of being able to just make a decision.
Family-owned Catania Brothers has been handcrafting quality jerky for over 75 years. They're a longtime supporter of the rodeo industry through sponsorships and ambassador programs, and are proud to provide rodeo athletes with high-protein snacks to fuel them on the road and between competitions. From their easy-to-eat extra thin-cut beef jerky to hickory smoked beef sticks, the small batch snacks have a satisfying meat-forward flavor and are made from premium top round American beef that is dried low and slow, the old-fashioned way. Visit CataniaBrothers.com and use code Luke15 for 15% off your order. Make sure and follow them at Catania Brothers on social media.
Well, you're a controlled environment. You have camera angles, and I get that, and I think the contestants will get that. But at the places where you have that opportunity with camera angles, why not take advantage of it? And I've seen they are starting, or they are putting some steps into place. I think any rodeo that adds over 50,000 an event, they're going to implement instant replay, $500 fine if you don't, win your challenge. From a rough stock side of the arena, what are some of the challenges that can be thrown, the challenge flag, in the rough stock side?
So the spur out is one of them. If you touch yourself or the animal with a free hand is one of them. The buck off time is one of them. I think if the horse interferes with like the pickup man, runs into the pickup man, I think that's one of them. The horse stumbles, goes to a knee or a hock, that one there would be, as far as for ride, those are all review calls.
Now in the timed events, I know it can get a little trickier. I'm gonna go to steer wrestling because, for example, you throw your steer, the flagger does not drop the flag. Now you're relying on, okay, throw the flag. Why didn't he drop the flag? He said he was down. Okay, you clarify the steer's not down. When do you start the time or when you stop the time, I guess I should say, because obviously there's going to be a delay from the time the steer is flat when you're supposed to get the flag, from the time the flagger drops the flag, and then the time the timer pushes the button on the stopwatch.
I think it's tricky when you go back and retime it, because the amount of delay that you're talking about from when the flagger drops the flag to the timer sees it and her button hits the console, her finger hits the console, I think that's tricky. I think if there was an obvious discrepancy there, then I think you'd have grounds for a rerun, more so than we're going to go back and retime it. I think timing it from a buck-off standpoint is different,
right, than
it is. Benefit of the doubt probably goes more heavily to the athlete when you time it, but I think that if the flagger just missed it, and it was challenged, I'd have to go back and look at the rule book, but I think that you'd be looking more for a rerun. In that case, it would be for a retime.
Well, and the reason I asked that, because in 2016 at Albuquerque, Paul Hughes was flagging, and I think John Davis was a replay judge, and Paul didn't drop the flag, and I can't remember if he said he was down or something, had a leg, and I ended up being 3 flat. And I asked John, how do you get to 3 flat? I mean, I ended up winning the event, but I was curious, how did you get from that if you've never seen, the flag drop? And to me, I don't know that it'd be that hard if you have a 1/10 of a second between steer flat to the flag drop and to the flag drop and to the timer hitting the button. If that was with all this technology nowadays, you think you'd be able to figure that out, but opportunity. And obviously team rope would be your crossfire barrier. All the time events would be a barrier, as we've seen in Houston with Bo Cooper. Gosh, dang.
And then like in the steer wrestling, just like what happened to you, and you did a replay review when you threw a steer, and it was like did you have contact with it? And that's the type of thing that can be.
Barrier and team rope and crossfire, breakaway, bell collar catch when your snaps off. So again, I think there's so much opportunity out there. I don't think barrel racing, would you need an instant replay in barrel racing?
I think it has to do with if the barrel falls. And so I know that I can't think of her name right now. She at Austin, she tipped a barrel and it was leaning. Right. And so like the rule is the barrel can't fall or penalty. So let's say this is just a reviewable call. So in the barrel race and she leaves the third barrel and it starts tipping like this, did she cross the line before the barrel hit? That could be reviewable. And
if it hadn't touched the ground till she crossed the line, it's not a 5-second penalty?
Right.
Oh, that's some intense stuff. You wouldn't expect that to ever happen, but obviously it did.
Well, you try to have a rule for every little thing that could happen, and we wrote our rule book from scratch. So, there's stuff that could happen that still isn't in there. That's right. Why I think just common sense, having the ability to fall back on an instant replay and using common sense. And that goes to the runner. That's sort of our motto.
Well, again, seeing that the PRCA is starting to implement this, it'll be curious if they use it at the national finals. I know you said an instant replay could have helped you win another world championship. Was that with your ride, or was that with somebody else that may have missed their horse out?
No, it was with me. It was you remember Moulin Rouge?
Oh yeah.
Roan horse around, and she was small. Spurred the horse out. They threw the flag and said that I was overreaching. Your feet were there, but I'm not sure that you had contact. It was kind of like a wishy-washy. Yeah, it's just one call. How damaging could it be? Well, it's just everything. You know what I mean? Like, you risk your life, you put everything on hold to try to make the NFR, thinking that that's going to, solve all your problems, and you're at the point where you're trying to win a world championship, and then you have one thing that's maybe out of your control that happens. The wrong call, it's a wrong angle. Maybe it wasn't. If it wasn't, and you were able to see the view, you'd feel better about it, right? But it snowballs. You win a world championship, your endorsements get better, your opportunities improve. You take that away because of one bad call. Who knows? Does that guy come back or not? I just think that in the riding events, you can die doing this. The next time you nod your head, you can die. You can paralyze, whatever. I'm pretty passionate about it. Like, these guys need to have their opportunities not taken away from them while they're able to take advantage of it. You could be at the top of the world, and the next time you nod your head, it's it.
Yeah. Well, and the argument is, obviously the production. But another thing is, well, if you do it at this rodeo and it's not fair if you don't do it at that one. Well, that's not the case. Let's try to make it as fair as we can at the places we have available to do it. And I think that is key. Even again, we talk about how much money's added at the rodeo that they have it at. I think it's if they have the capability of instant replay.
The capability's there, and it's a pretty flimsy response to say you have to do it the same everywhere when they just don't have a spur out rule at Fort Worth.
Right.
Well, they have a spur out rule at Oakdale, right? And so is it not the same? I mean, you can't pick and choose where you apply that, excuse. I mean, it has to be across the board. And I don't think it needs to be across the board. I think that just because you fly the flag out, in your grand entry doesn't necessarily mean you're pro.
No, that's for sure. Well, I can't thank the WCRA enough for what they're doing to help make the rodeo contestants, the rodeo athletes, availability to more money, to more big events without having to go any extra miles. With the virtual qualifier and all that, it's amazing. And then again, the instant replay, which has been the hot topic here lately, and what you guys have done to help shine a light really on how important it is and how good of a thing it is for our industry. So, Bobby, thank you again for joining us. Looking forward to everything you guys are doing.
Well, I appreciate it. And just one more thing I'd like to add with that, here's what I'd say about the WCRA effort is that if you like the fact that Ty does go to the runner, that we are for the athlete, then it's not an either or proposition. If you're an athlete, if you haven't done this before and you're skeptical because you're like, well, it's either me or them, it's not that way. This is about additional opportunities for rodeo athletes. And just like you said, you don't have to go to a qualifier somewhere and try to qualify. You can say, well, I've got a good horse drawn, or I've got a good steer drawn, or my horse is running good, or whatever, and use that event as a qualifier to go to events that we have purposely scheduled sort of off your pro rodeo schedule, and a chance to win a lot of money. And it's sort of, old news now, but R.C. Manningham went to 3 rodeos and won 3 rodeos and won $1 million. There's not an opportunity for a pro, if you're a top 5 guy, to earn $1 million in rodeo in one whack like that. And so what the Americans for rodeo has been amazing, and it's a great opportunity for people. And this is another great opportunity for people that doesn't require them to go out of their way. And then if you like the opportunity to have the right call go in the right place, support those people who do that.
That is your 4-time world champion bareback rider, president of the WCRA, and the whole crew, Scott Davis, Gary McKinney. I mean, you guys have a team that has been, all about making this work and successful. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks, Bob.